I thought my boyfriend was being romantic by gently removing my glasses, but it quickly morphed into control and abuse. He began to weaponize my severe vision problems against me, ultimately destroying my essential medical device. I'm Lovra, 29, and I've been with my boyfriend, Carter, 35, for about 18 months. I need to explain my vision situation because it's central to what's happened and why I'm questioning if I'm overreacting. I have profound myopia in both eyes, with a prescription of -13 in my left and -14 in my right. Without my glasses, I literally can't see anything clearly beyond about 6 inches from my face. People become indistinct, flesh-toned blurs. Furniture appears as dark, shapeless masses. And text is utterly impossible to read. My glasses aren't just an accessory or a style choice. They are a vital medical device that allows me to function in the world. These particular glasses set me back over $2,000 18 months ago, because the lenses require special manufacturing for such a strong prescription. Carter and I met through my coworker Sandra at a company happy hour. He was immediately understanding about my vision challenges and never made me feel self-conscious about wearing thick glasses or needing to sit close to screens. My best friend Rhonda adored him right away, calling him the most thoughtful partner I'd ever had. My parents were thrilled because previous boyfriends had sometimes seemed uncomfortable with my reliance on glasses for basic tasks. The first year of our relationship was truly wonderful. Carter always ensured I had proper lighting when we went to restaurants. He'd gently guide my arm when we walked in dimly lit areas so I wouldn't stumble. When we watched movies at home, he let me choose where to sit so I could see the screen clearly. He even researched different types of contact lenses to see if any options might suit my prescription, though we discovered my eyes are too dry for extended contact wear. Everything started changing about 6 months ago during an intimate evening. At his apartment, we were kissing on his couch when Carter reached over and carefully removed my glasses. He placed them on the coffee table, saying he wanted me to fully immerse myself in physical sensations, free from visual distractions. The world instantly became a soft, indistinct blur of colors and shapes. At first, I thought it was sweet that he wanted to create a different kind of experience for me. This became Carter's routine every single time we were intimate. He would remove my glasses at the very beginning, and I would spend the entire experience in my blurry world, unable to clearly make out his face or expressions. Sometimes I wanted to see him during these moments, but my glasses were always just beyond my reach on whatever surface he had placed them. After this pattern continued for several months, I finally asked Carter one evening if I could occasionally keep my glasses on. I explained that I liked being able to see his face and that the blurriness made me worry about looking strange or doing something wrong. Carter laughed it off, insisting his way was better for us both. He said I was overthinking, telling me to trust his judgment for the best experience. I didn't want to turn it into a big argument, so I dropped the subject. The glasses removal became completely automatic. Carter would reach for them the moment things started getting romantic, without asking or discussing it. If I turned my head away or tried to keep them on, he would gently yet firmly take them off. Anyway, I started feeling like I was being excluded from my own intimate experiences because I couldn't see what was happening. 2 months ago, something happened that really bothered me. We were getting ready for my office Christmas party, and I was in the bathroom doing my makeup. Carter came up behind me and yanked my glasses off without warning. He held them up high where I couldn't reach, wanting me to guess what he was saying by trying to read his lips in the mirror. I couldn't see his mouth clearly at that angle, and I was trying to finish putting on mascara. I asked him to give them back because we needed to leave soon.
He demanded I say please repeatedly before he handed them back.
The entire interaction lasted maybe 3 minutes, but I had to restart my eye makeup because my hands were trembling. We ended up being 20 minutes late to the party, and I felt humiliated arriving after everyone was already eating dinner. My coworker Sandra asked if everything was okay because I looked flustered. I just told her we had gotten stuck in traffic. A month later, we were at Carter's friend David's backyard barbecue. I was carrying a plate of food and didn't see a small step down from the deck to the patio area. I stumbled but caught myself and didn't drop anything. Carter immediately announced to the whole group that this was exactly why he had to watch me constantly.
He said I was helpless without him guiding me around dangerous situations.
David and his wife laughed, but I noticed Rhonda didn't. She was visiting that weekend and had come to the barbecue with us. Carter kept making comments throughout the afternoon about being my seeing-eye dog. He told an exaggerated tale about getting disoriented in a department store the previous week when I took my glasses off to try on sunglasses. The story made me sound utterly helpless and bewildered. Everyone thought it was funny, but Rhonda pulled me aside later and asked if Carter always poked fun at my vision problems in front of other people. The worst incident happened 4 weeks ago. I had a crucial client presentation at work the next morning that I'd been preparing for over 2 weeks. I needed to be in the office by 7:30 to set up the conference room and review my materials one final time. I set my alarm for 6 o'clock to give myself plenty of time to get ready and feel prepared. I woke up not to my alarm, but to Carter initiating intimacy. My glasses were already missing from the nightstand where I always kept them. I had no idea what time it was because I couldn't see the clock across the room. When we finished, I reached for my phone and discovered it was already 6:45. My alarm had been going off for 45 minutes. But Carter had silenced it, claiming he wanted me to have a relaxing morning before my big presentation. I had to rush through my shower and getting dressed. I didn't have time to review my presentation notes or eat breakfast properly. I grabbed a protein bar and ran out the door. The presentation went reasonably well, but I felt disoriented and unprepared the whole time. My supervisor commented afterward that I appeared unusually nervous and asked if I was feeling all right. I had to fabricate an excuse about poor sleep the night before. That evening, I tried to explain to Carter why what happened that morning was unacceptable. I told him that my glasses weren't mere accessories that could be removed whenever he felt like it. I needed them to function safely and autonomously. I asked him to please stop taking them during intimate moments, or at least ask permission first instead of just removing them automatically. Carter immediately grew defensive. He said I was making a mountain out of a molehill and trying to control our intimate expressions. He said most women would appreciate a boyfriend who desired to create special romantic experiences for them. He kept asking why I was suddenly trying to change something that had been working fine for months. Our conversation spiraled for over an hour, and he never once conceded that removing my glasses without permission might be wrong. We went to bed that night without resolving anything. Carter barely spoke to me for the rest of the week. He would answer direct questions but didn't initiate conversations. He left for work earlier than usual and came home later. I felt like he was punishing me for raising the issue at all. Last week, Rhonda called me after work. She said she had been pondering the barbecue and other observations from when she was around Carter and me. She asked directly whether Carter's behavior around my vision issues was bothering me. Something about the way she asked made me start tearing up, and I ended up telling her everything about the glasses removal, the morning presentation incident, and how small and powerless it made me feel. Rhonda was quiet for a long time after I finished explaining everything. Then she said she thought Carter might be deriving satisfaction from making me more dependent on him than I already was. She said healthy partners don't deliberately take away their significant other's medical devices for their own enjoyment. When she said enjoyment, a realization hit me. Rhonda was absolutely right. This wasn't about romance or helping me focus on physical sensations. Carter was getting something out of temporarily disabling me. He was taking away my ability to see and navigate normally, and he seemed to relish that level of control over the situation. After that conversation with Rhonda, I couldn't stop thinking about the pattern of behavior. Carter had gradually shifted from being supportive of my vision issues to exploiting them for his own gratification. The public comments and the glasses games were all part of the same dynamic. He craved my dependence, and he was creating situations where I had no choice but to rely on him completely. I've decided I need to have another frank conversation with Carter about this. I'm planning to tell him that the glasses removal needs to cease entirely and permanently, and that his public comments about my vision are humiliating and must stop as well. I'm apprehensive about his reaction because he got so defensive the last time I brought this up. But I can't continue feeling this unease in my own relationship. I'm writing this post because I want to know if other people think I'm overreacting. Carter keeps saying I'm overly sensitive and that I should appreciate having someone who accepts my disability. But Rhonda thinks his behavior is controlling and potentially harmful. I've been with Carter for 18 months, and this pattern only started recently. So I'm conflicted about whether this is fixable or if it represents a deeper issue than I want to acknowledge. Has anyone else dealt with a partner who seemed to fetishize their disability or medical devices? Am I wrong to feel uncomfortable about the glasses removal? I keep going back and forth between thinking I'm being too dramatic and thinking Rhonda is right, that this is actually a serious red flag I shouldn't ignore. Update 1. I posted 2 weeks ago about my boyfriend Carter removing my glasses during intimate moments. The overwhelming consensus was that his behavior was controlling and inappropriate. I decided to have a very direct conversation with him about stopping this completely. I waited until we were both home from work on a Thursday evening. I had rehearsed my words because I wanted to be completely clear and stay calm. I told Carter that I was no longer comfortable with him removing my glasses during intimate moments, and that I needed him to stop doing it entirely. I explained that it made me feel powerless and disconnected from the experience. I also asked him to stop making public comments about my vision because they were embarrassing and hurtful. Carter's reaction was immediate and intense. He said I was attacking his character, essentially labeling him a predator. He kept asking if I thought he was a terrible person. I tried to explain that I wasn't attacking him personally, but that his specific actions were making me uncomfortable. He said I was being overly dramatic and that we had been doing this for months without any problems before. The argument lasted nearly 4 hours. Carter kept turning everything back to how hurt he was that I would accuse him of exploiting my disability. He said he was the most supportive boyfriend I had ever had, and that I was being ungrateful for everything he did to help me. He brought up all the accommodations he had made early in our relationship and said I was throwing that kindness back in his face. I kept trying to steer the conversation back to my specific request about the glasses, but Carter wouldn't focus on that. He said I was trying to control our intimate life and that most couples work through these kinds of preferences together instead of issuing ultimatums. He never once acknowledged my feelings or agreed to change his behavior in any way. We finally went to bed around midnight without resolving anything. Carter barely spoke to me for the rest of the week. He would answer direct questions but didn't initiate any conversations. He left for work early and came home late every day. I felt like he was punishing me for raising the issue in the first place. The following Friday night, Carter came home with flowers and takeout from my favorite restaurant. He apologized for getting so defensive and said he wanted to work things out between us. I thought maybe we were finally going to have a productive conversation about boundaries and respect. Instead, Carter said he had been thinking about our argument and decided we could reach a compromise. He would ask for permission before removing my glasses instead of just taking them automatically. I explained that I didn't want him to remove them at all anymore, not even with permission. Carter looked genuinely confused and said he thought the problem was just that he hadn't been asking first. He said removing the glasses was an important part of our intimate bond and that eliminating it completely would fundamentally alter our dynamic. He couldn't understand why I would want to give up something that had been working so well for so many months. This was when I realized we were having completely different conversations. Carter saw this as a minor relationship preference that we could compromise about. I saw it as him repeatedly disabling my medical device for his own gratification. The chasm between our perspectives was vast, and I didn't know how to bridge it. Over the weekend, things went back to the exact same pattern as before. Carter removed my glasses during intimacy without asking permission first, despite our entire conversation. When I reminded him afterward about what we had discussed, he said he had gotten caught up in the moment and simply forgotten about our agreement. He promised to remember next time, but his tone suggested he felt I was being unreasonable about the whole situation. I called Rhonda on Sunday evening and told her about the conversation and Carter's reaction. She asked if I was planning to stay with someone who couldn't respect such a fundamental boundary concerning my medical needs. I didn't have a good answer for her. Part of me still hoped Carter would eventually understand why this was so important. To me, Rhonda pointed out that Carter's defensiveness and refusal to acknowledge my concerns were just as problematic as the original behavior. She said healthy partners don't guilt-trip their significant other for asking them to stop doing something harmful. She asked what I thought would happen if Carter continued completely disregarding my boundaries. 2 days later, I got my answer in the worst possible way. I woke up around 6 a.m. on Tuesday and immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. I reached for my glasses on the nightstand where I always kept them, but they weren't there. I sat up and frantically felt across the entire surface of the nightstand, and then on the floor next to the bed. Nothing. Carter wasn't in bed next to me. I called his name but got no response. Without my glasses, I couldn't discern if he was somewhere else in the apartment or if he had left entirely. I got up and systematically searched the bedroom, feeling along every surface and checking under all the furniture. Panic began to set in because I needed my glasses to get ready for work and function normally for the day ahead. I carefully navigated to the living room, using the walls to guide me. I found Carter sitting on the couch, fully dressed for work. I asked where my glasses were. He looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, cold, almost cruel. He said that since I thought he had been taking advantage of my disability, I should truly experience what it felt like to be disabled. Then he picked up his keys and walked out of the apartment. I stood in the living room for several minutes trying to process what had just happened. Carter had deliberately concealed my glasses and left me functionally blind as punishment for asking him to respect my boundaries. This wasn't about intimacy or relationship preferences anymore. This was cruel, calculated revenge. I spent the next hour and a half scouring every single room in the apartment. I checked drawers, cabinets, closets, and every possible hiding place I could think of. I looked under couch cushions and behind furniture. I was crawling on my hands and knees, feeling for them under beds and chairs. My knees were scraped, my hands grimy, but I couldn't find them anywhere in the apartment. Around 8:30, I was in the kitchen, checking inside containers and cabinets, when I inadvertently knocked over a ceramic mug that was sitting too close to the edge of the counter. When I bent down to pick up the shattered pieces, I discovered my glasses on the floor next to the refrigerator. One temple was completely snapped off, and the other was bent at an unnatural angle. One of the thick lenses had entirely dislodged from the frame. I tried to put them on, but the broken temple wouldn't stay in place, and the remaining lens was cracked straight down the middle. I could make out some vague shapes and colors, but not clearly enough to read or safely navigate. I could barely decipher the numbers on my phone screen. I had to call out sick from work and spend the entire day trying to find emergency repair services for my glasses. The optometrist I finally reached said the damage was extensive and would take at least 10 days to fix. The frame required complete replacement, and both lenses needed reordering because of my uncommon prescription strength. The total cost would exceed $1,200. She asked how the glasses had been damaged, and I couldn't bring myself to confess. I couldn't admit that my boyfriend had deliberately broken them to punish me. I called Rhonda from the optometrist's office using the office phone because I couldn't properly use my cell phone with my damaged vision. I told her what Carter had done and how much the repairs were going to cost. Rhonda fell silent for a long time. Then she said she was leaving work instantly to come pick me up and that I was staying with her until my glasses were repaired. Rhonda arrived at the optometrist's office within 30 minutes. She took one look at my face and the broken glasses and began to cry herself. She said she couldn't believe someone would intentionally destroy another person's medical equipment as punishment. She kept saying she was sorry for not pushing me harder to leave Carter weeks ago when I first told her about his behavior. We went back to the apartment to pack some clothes and essentials. Carter had been texting my phone all morning, but I couldn't decipher them clearly with my damaged vision. Rhonda read them out loud to me. The messages started out furious, asking where I was and why I wasn't responding. Then they shifted to concern, saying he was worried about me and wanted to make sure I was safe. The most recent messages expressed apologies, saying he had made a terrible mistake and wanted to reconcile. Rhonda helped me pack a suitcase with clothes and toiletries. She said I could stay with her indefinitely and that we would figure out the glasses repair costs together. As we were getting ready to leave, she asked if I wanted to respond to any of Carter's messages. I thought about it for a minute. Then, I told her to delete them all, unread. I've been at Rhonda's for 8 days now. The optometrist called yesterday and said my new glasses should be ready early next week. Carter has continued texting and calling relentlessly, but I haven't responded to any of his attempts to contact me. Rhonda thinks I should block his number entirely, but I haven't made that decision yet. Yesterday, Carter showed up at Rhonda's apartment building and used the intercom to try to gain entry. She refused, but he remained outside for over 2 hours. Some of Rhonda's neighbors came outside to ask what was going on. Rhonda ended up having to call building security to make him leave the property. I know I cannot return to Carter after what he did. Breaking my glasses wasn't an accident or a lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate, calculated act designed to punish me for establishing boundaries concerning my own medical needs. Rhonda was absolutely right when she said healthy partners don't disable their significant other's medical devices. I should have heeded her warning sooner. The hardest part is that Carter wasn't always like this. For the first year of our relationship, he was genuinely supportive and comprehending about my vision issues. I keep wondering if I missed earlier red flags or if this controlling behavior developed subtly, unnoticed by me. Either way, I cannot trust him with my safety or medical needs anymore. I'm planning to find my own place once my glasses are repaired, and I can function autonomously again. Rhonda has offered to help me look at apartments this weekend. I haven't told my parents about the breakup yet because I know they'll have lots of questions, and I'm not emotionally prepared to recount everything that happened. For now, I'm just focused on restoring my vision and securing a safe living space. I'll figure out everything else after that. Update 2. It's been 5 weeks since my last update about Carter breaking my glasses. I had them repaired and have been residing in a small one-bedroom apartment about 20 minutes away from Rhonda. I thought Carter would eventually stop trying to contact me, but his behavior has actually intensified in ways I never expected. For the first few weeks after I moved out, Carter sent multiple texts daily, alternating between apologies and accusations. The apologetic messages said he had made a horrible mistake and desperately wanted to rectify things between us. The accusatory messages said I was overreacting and discarding our entire relationship over a minor disagreement. I never responded to any of them, but I also didn't block his number because I was curious about his ongoing messages. 3 weeks ago, Carter started appearing at places he knew I'd be. He showed up outside my office building during my lunch break and followed me to my usual sandwich shop on Tuesdays.
He didn't directly approach me, but ensured I saw him watching from across the street.
This occurred 4 times in a single week. I told my supervisor about the situation, and building security began escorting me to my car after work each day. Carter also began contacting my friends and family to try to get information about me. He called Rhonda repeatedly, urging her to convince me to speak with him. He told her he was gravely concerned about my mental health and thought I was making major life decisions based on temporary emotions, not rational thought. Rhonda stopped answering his calls after he started leaving voicemails at 2 and 3 a.m. last week. Carter called my parents directly. He told them we had broken up over a misunderstanding and that he was concerned I was isolating myself from people who cared about me. My mother called me immediately after talking to Carter because she was utterly confused about what had transpired between us. I had never shared the full story about Carter breaking my glasses because I didn't want them to worry. I ended up having to explain the entire ordeal to my parents over the phone. My father remained largely quiet during the conversation, but I could hear him murmuring to my mother in the background. When I finished telling them about Carter deliberately breaking my glasses and leaving me unable to see, my father asked for Carter's number.
He said he wanted to have a direct conversation with Carter about respecting boundaries and leaving me alone. My mother was far more emotional about the whole thing.
She kept asking why I hadn't informed them when it first started. She said they could have helped me navigate the situation or at least offered emotional support during a difficult time. I explained that I had been attempting to resolve things with Carter independently and hadn't realized the severity of the problem until he broke my glasses. My parents were planning to visit the following weekend to check on me and ensure I was okay. But something else happened first that changed everything. On Wednesday evening last week, I was returning home from the grocery store when I noticed Carter's car parked directly across the street from my apartment building. I had seen him around the neighborhood a few times over the past weeks, but he had never been directly outside my building before. I waited in my car for about 15 minutes to see if he would leave on his own. When he didn't, I called Rhonda, asking her to stay on the line with me while I went inside. Rhonda said she was fed up with Carter's harassment and that she was calling the police immediately. I asked her to wait because I was unsure if his actions technically constituted stalking since he hadn't issued any direct threats towards me. Rhonda pointed out that repeatedly appearing at my home and workplace after I'd cut off all contact was inherently threatening behavior, even without explicit verbal threats. While we were talking on the phone, I saw Carter exit his car and walk towards my building's entrance. I told Rhonda what was happening, and she said she was calling 911 immediately. I stayed in my car and watched Carter try the main door to the building. When he couldn't enter without a key code, he began systematically pressing random apartment buzzers. Mrs. Rodriguez, who lives on the first floor, must have buzzed him in because I saw Carter vanish inside. I was terrified, realizing he'd likely come straight to my apartment door, and I would be trapped with no escape. I dialed 911 myself and explained that my ex-boyfriend had entered my building without permission and was likely headed to my apartment. The dispatcher told me to stay in my car until officers arrived on the scene. Within about 8 minutes, I could see Carter descending the internal stairs inside the building. He looked extremely agitated, speaking loudly on his phone. He came outside and stood directly in front of the entrance for several more minutes before finally getting back into his car. 2 police officers arrived about 5 minutes later. I got out of my car and explained the entire situation while Carter was still in his car across the street. One officer approached Carter while the other took a detailed statement from me. I showed the officer screenshots of some of Carter's recent texts and explained about him appearing at my workplace and contacting my family without permission. The officer who had talked to Carter came back and said Carter claimed he was merely seeking a reasonable conversation with me to resolve our relationship issues. Carter had told the officer that I was refusing to communicate with him entirely, and that he was genuinely concerned for my emotional well-being. The officer explained that regardless of his stated intentions, repeatedly appearing at my home and workplace after I'd ceased contact could legally be considered harassment. The officers couldn't arrest Carter on the spot because he hadn't technically committed a prosecutable crime, but they told him he needed to immediately cease coming to my apartment building and workplace. They explained that if I chose to file a restraining order violating it would lead to immediate arrest and criminal charges. Carter agreed to leave the area and not return, but I could tell from his body language that he was furious about the police involvement. After Carter drove away, one of the officers gave me detailed information about obtaining a restraining order. He said Carter's pattern of behavior aligned with the classic escalation of harassment and that legal protection would simplify enforcing clear boundaries. He also suggested that I document any future contact attempts with specific dates and times in case I needed evidence for future court proceedings. The next morning, Rhonda took a personal day to accompany me to the courthouse to file for a temporary restraining order. The process consumed most of the day and required a very detailed statement about Carter's behavior over the past several months. I had to include specific information about breaking my glasses, appearing at my workplace, contacting family, and unauthorized entry into my building. The clerk who processed my paperwork said the judge would review my request within 48 hours and that Carter would be officially served with a temporary order if it was approved. She explained that there would be a formal hearing in about 2 weeks where both Carter and I could present our sides, and the judge would decide on a permanent restraining order. Carter was served with a temporary restraining order on Monday of this week. The order requires him to remain at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. It also explicitly forbids him from contacting me directly or indirectly. Rhonda said she felt genuinely relieved knowing there would be legal repercussions if Carter continued his harassment. On Tuesday, Carter violated the restraining order by calling Rhonda's phone, asking her to relay a message to me. Rhonda didn't answer the call, but Carter left a detailed voicemail saying he needed to speak with me urgently about the restraining order and that there had been a serious misunderstanding about his intentions. Rhonda saved the voicemail and immediately called the police to report the violation. 2 officers went to Carter's apartment and arrested him for violating the temporary restraining order. He was held overnight in jail, released the next morning with a court date scheduled for the violation. The officer who called to update me said Carter would likely face substantial fines and potential jail time if he violated the order again in any way. The permanent restraining order hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday. My parents are driving down for moral support. Rhonda also plans to attend because she witnessed some of Carter's harassment firsthand and may need to testify if requested. My lawyer assured me the documented evidence was more than sufficient to get a permanent restraining order approved by the judge. I never imagined my relationship with Carter would end with police involvement and court proceedings. 2 months ago, I was merely asking him to stop removing my glasses during intimate moments. Now I'm dealing with harassment, stalking, and legal action. The escalation has been terrifying and has made me realize how truly dangerous Carter's need for control actually was from the beginning. The glasses incident wasn't an isolated lapse in judgment on his part. It was part of a systematic pattern where Carter felt entitled to control my disability and my access to vision. When I tried to establish reasonable boundaries, his controlling behavior escalated dramatically instead of respecting my autonomy as an independent individual. I'm grateful for Rhonda's unwavering support throughout this entire process, and for my parents finally grasping the full gravity of the situation. I'm also glad I thoroughly documented Carter's harassment and sought legal protection before his actions became even more dangerous than they already were. The permanent restraining order hearing is in 6 days. I'll update everyone after that's completely resolved. Update 3. The restraining order hearing occurred 2.5 weeks ago. Carter showed up with a lawyer, which caught me completely off guard because I hadn't expected him to professionally contest the order.
His lawyer argued Carter was simply trying to reconcile with his girlfriend and that I was grossly overreacting
to normal relationship conflicts that could be resolved through communication. My lawyer presented all the evidence I'd systematically gathered, screenshots of Carter's text messages, detailed documentation of his appearances at my workplace and apartment building, records of his phone calls to my family members, and written statements from Rhonda and my parents. The judge also had access to the police reports from his temporary restraining order violation by contacting Rhonda. Carter's lawyer tried to downplay the glasses incident by labeling it a relationship disagreement that spiraled during an emotional argument. When the judge directly asked Carter to explain why he had hidden my glasses and left me unable to see, Carter said he had been trying to demonstrate my true dependence on him in the relationship. He claimed he was trying to show his value as a supportive partner. The judge was clearly unimpressed with Carter's explanation. She said that deliberately disabling someone's medical devices constituted abuse, regardless of underlying motivation. She also noted that Carter's pattern of escalating contact attempts after I had clearly ended the relationship showed a consistent refusal to respect basic personal boundaries. The permanent restraining order was approved for a full 3 years. Carter must remain at least 1,000 feet away from me, my home, my workplace, and any members of my immediate family. He's also explicitly prohibited from contacting me via social media, email, phone, or third parties. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and potential jail time. After the hearing concluded, Carter's lawyer approached my lawyer in the courthouse hallway.
He said Carter wanted to apologize in person and asked if there was any possible way to resolve the situation without the restraining order in place.
My lawyer told him that Carter had been given multiple chances to voluntarily respect my boundaries and had consistently chosen escalation instead. She said the restraining order was absolutely essential for my safety and that Carter needed to focus on understanding why his behavior was harmful rather than trying to minimize the legal repercussions. Carter was also formally convicted of violating the temporary restraining order when he called Rhonda. He received 6 months of supervised probation and was required to complete a court-mandated program on healthy relationship dynamics and domestic violence prevention. The prosecutor told me this would help Carter comprehend why his behavior toward me had been inappropriate and potentially dangerous to my physical safety. Since the permanent restraining order was finalized, Carter has not attempted contact with me or anyone in my family in any way. Rhonda mentioned that she saw him at a coffee shop near her office once, but he left immediately upon noticing her. I've been able to return to my daily routine without constantly looking over my shoulder or worrying about unexpected encounters. This entire experience has fundamentally reshaped my perspective on relationships and personal boundaries. I used to believe that caring partners naturally respected each other's needs and physical limitations. I learned that some people view their partner's vulnerabilities as avenues for control rather than reasons for extra care and consideration. I also learned that asking someone to cease harmful behavior often reveals their true character more clearly than anything else. Carter's response to my simple request about the glasses showed me that he valued his control over my disability more than my comfort and autonomy. His escalating harassment after I left proved he saw me as property rather than as an independent person with the right to make my own life choices. My parents have been more supportive throughout this than I ever expected. My father said he was genuinely proud of me for confronting Carter and protecting myself through appropriate legal channels. My mother has been calling more frequently to check on my well-being, but in a caring, not anxious or intrusive way. They both said they wished I'd told them about Carter's behavior much sooner, but they completely understood why I initially tried to handle the situation privately. Rhonda and I have become even closer friends through this difficult experience. She never once suggested that I should give Carter another chance or try to work things out with him through compromise. She understood instantly that breaking my glasses was an unforgivable violation and that Carter's subsequent behavior confirmed he was genuinely dangerous. Having someone believe me completely and support my decisions without question made the entire legal process significantly easier to navigate successfully. I've been living independently in my apartment for 3 months now, and I really enjoy the freedom and peace of mind. I've started weekend pottery classes and have become friendly with several of my neighbors in the building. I'm not actively thinking about dating yet, but I feel much more confident recognizing red flags early and setting firm boundaries if I do meet someone new in the future. The most crucial lesson I learned through this experience is that my disability doesn't exist for others' entertainment or control. My glasses are medical devices allowing me to see and navigate the world independently and safely. Any romantic partner who interferes with my access to those devices for their own satisfaction is not someone who genuinely cares about my well-being or respects me as a person. I'm sharing this final update because I want others to understand that escalating, controlling behavior in relationships doesn't spontaneously improve over time. Carter escalated from removing my glasses during intimacy to breaking them as punishment, then stalking me for weeks. Each boundary I tried to establish was met with increased violations instead of respect and understanding. If someone in your life is interfering with your medical devices, mobility aids, or other disability accommodations in any way, that's not a relationship issue solvable through compromise or better communication. It's abuse that will almost certainly worsen over time. The sooner you recognize the pattern and seek appropriate help, the safer you'll be in the long run. I don't regret the 18 months I spent with Carter because I learned crucial things about myself and about what I truly need in a healthy relationship. But I'm grateful every day that I heeded Rhonda's concerns and left when I did. Carter's behavior after I left showed me clearly how much worse things could have become if I had stayed and continued trying to make him understand why his actions were harmful and wrong. The restraining order expires in less than 3 years, but I hope Carter uses the time to genuinely understand why his behavior was abusive and to develop healthier relationship patterns with professional support. For my part, I'm focused on building a life where I feel completely safe, respected, and free to make my own choices about my body and my medical needs. Looking back, I now see the glasses removal was never about creating romantic experiences or helping me focus on physical sensations. It was about Carter establishing control over my fundamental ability to navigate the world. When I finally recognized that pattern and tried to stop it, his true character fully emerged. The scariest part is realizing how gradually it all unfolded. Carter started as the most accommodating boyfriend I'd ever had. He learned about my vision needs and seemed genuinely caring about my limitations. But somewhere along the way, that care transformed into a desire to control and exploit those very limitations for his own satisfaction. I think about other women who might be in similar situations with partners who interfere with their medical devices or disability accommodations. It's easy to dismiss these behaviors as quirks or preferences, especially when they start small and gradually escalate over time. But my experience taught me that any partner who derives satisfaction from making you more disabled or dependent than you already are is someone who doesn't respect your fundamental humanity. The legal process was exhausting and intimidating, but it was absolutely essential. Carter's behavior after I left proved that he had no intention of voluntarily respecting my boundaries. Without the restraining order, I believe his harassment would have continued indefinitely, potentially escalating to physical violence. I'm sharing all of this because I want other people to trust their instincts when something feels wrong in their relationship, even if they can't fully articulate why. Rhonda's validation was critical in helping me recognize that Carter's behavior wasn't normal or acceptable. Sometimes we need outside perspectives to clearly see what's happening. My vision is perfect with my new glasses, and more importantly, I can now see my life clearly too. I know what I will and won't accept from future partners. I know that my disability doesn't make me less deserving of respect and care. And I know that I have the strength to protect myself when someone tries to take advantage of my vulnerabilities. That's really all I wanted to say. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post and updates with support and advice. It helped me feel less alone during a very difficult time. Now, for the next story, Story 2. I exposed my sister's pregnancy deception at Grandma's 80th birthday. Now, my entire family is against me. I, 28F, have been living with my boyfriend Todd, 30M, for the past 2 years in a comfortable city apartment. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue 5 years ago and instantly connected. Todd's dry wit and love for obscure indie bands perfectly complemented my outgoing personality and passion for classic rock. After 3 years of dating, we decided to move in together, a decision fully supported by our families. We're both busy professionals. I work as a marketing manager for a mid-size
tech company, and Todd is a software engineer at a startup.
Our careers keep us constantly engaged, but we always make time for each other, whether it's cooking elaborate meals together on weekends or binge-watching the latest Netflix series. My younger sister, Barbara, 24, has always been the family's youngest. Growing up, she was the princess, always got her way with our parents. I remember countless times I sacrificed my plans to babysit her, or my achievements were eclipsed by her latest success. Don't get me wrong, I love Barbara, but our relationship has always been complex. Barbara met her now husband, Earl, 26, in college. They were the classic opposites attract couple. Barbara, the bubbly theater major, and Earl, the quiet engineering student. Despite their differences, they seemed to perfectly balance each other. I still remember the day Barbara called me, squealing with excitement that Earl had proposed. It was during their graduation trip to Europe, atop the Eiffel Tower. Very romantic, very Barbara. They had a beautiful wedding 6 months ago. I was the maid of honor, and despite the stress of bachelorette party planning and helping with all the wedding preparations, I was genuinely happy for her. The wedding was a lavish affair. Our parents spared no expense for their youngest daughter. There were ice sculptures, a 7-tier cake, and a fireworks display at the end of the night. Earl seemed a bit overwhelmed by it all, but he appeared happy. Everything seemed perfect in Barbara's world until last week when she called me out of the blue, sobbing uncontrollably. At first, I couldn't make sense of her words. I thought maybe she and Earl had a fight or something had happened to our parents. When she finally calmed enough to speak, she told me she was pregnant. I was surprised but excited for her. However, as we talked more, I realized the source of her distress. Apparently, Earl had always been clear about not wanting kids, at least not for another 5 or 6 years. He wanted to focus on his career and save for a home before starting a family. Barbara, conversely, always dreamed of being a young mom. She talked about it constantly as teenagers, how she wanted to have kids before 25 to be a cool mom. As Barbara continued to talk, she dropped a bombshell. She confessed she'd stopped taking birth control without Earl's knowledge, hoping pregnancy would change his mind once it happened. I was shocked and disappointed in Barbara's behavior. It rekindled memories of her past manipulations to get her way when we were younger, but this was in an entirely different league. I told Barbara she needed to tell Earl the truth immediately. She protested, fearing he'd leave, but I insisted honesty was the only path forward. I reminded her of Earl's deep value for trust. He'd even woven it into his wedding vows. 2 days later, Barbara called me again. She told Earl everything. He was furious. He felt betrayed and needed time to process. He packed a bag and went to his parents for a while. Barbara was distraught, oscillating between tears and anger at Earl for abandoning her. Barbara begged me to intercede with Earl. She wanted me to explain her love for him and how she only acted because she wanted to start a family with him. I refused, telling her she'd made her bed and now had to lie in it. This wasn't something I could fix. She grew angry, accusing me of not supporting her in her time of need. I told her I loved her, but couldn't condone her actions. A week later, Mom called. She was livid with me for not supporting Barbara. She said that as her older sister, it was my duty to stand by her, no matter what. Mom insisted I host a baby shower for Barbara to show my support and help her reconcile with Earl. She even suggested Barbara stay with Todd and me if Earl didn't come around soon. I was conflicted. On one hand, I love and want to support my sister. Despite our childhood differences, she's still my little sister. On the other, I couldn't ignore her deception about something so important. I kept thinking about how devastated Earl must feel. I told Mom I'd consider it, but internally, I leaned towards not getting involved. Yesterday, I got a group text from Barbara. She had created an online baby registry, soliciting gifts. The items on the list were ridiculously expensive. The cheapest item was a $200 baby monitor. There were designer baby clothes, a $1,000 stroller, and even a $500 diaper bag. At the bottom of the message, she wrote, "Since Earl is being difficult, I need all the support I can get. Please show your love for the baby by purchasing something from this list." I was appalled by her entitlement. It reminded me of her childhood. Expectation of expensive gifts for every birthday and Christmas, while I was always taught to be grateful for what I received. I chose not to respond, hoping she'd get the hint. This morning I woke up to a barrage of texts from Barbara, demanding to know why I hadn't bought anything. She said that, as her sister, I should be the first to buy a gift, and that my silence was hurtful. She even had the audacity to suggest specific items from the list that she thought Todd and I could afford. I finally replied, stating I couldn't afford such expensive gifts and that I was uncomfortable with the whole situation. I reminded her Todd and I were saving for our own future and couldn't spend hundreds on baby gifts right now. Barbara exploded, calling me selfish and unsupportive. She said if I truly cared about her and my future niece or nephew, I'd find a way to buy something from the list. She brought up how our parents helped with my car's down payment when I was in college, implying I owed it to the family to be generous. Now, Mom called again, siding with Barbara. She suggested I take out a loan if I couldn't afford the gifts. Stunned, I called it ridiculous and said Barbara's behavior was unacceptable. Mom then accused me of jealousy, noting Todd and I had been together longer but weren't married or having kids. Now, my entire family is upset with me. They're saying I'm choosing Earl over my own sister and that I'm being cruel to a pregnant woman. Even cousins reached out on social media, telling me to be more supportive. Todd has been my rock throughout this ordeal. But even he thinks I should just buy something small to keep the peace. He doesn't want this to cause a family rift between me and my family. But I can't shake the feeling that giving in now would enable Barbara's behavior, just as our parents have her whole life. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I truly in the wrong? Should I cave and buy a gift to appease Barbara or stand my ground? I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I'm overreacting or if my complicated history with Barbara is clouding my judgment. Any advice is appreciated. Update 1. 2 weeks since my last post, and things have only grown more complicated. I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. It's been invaluable during this trying time. After my last post, I decided to stand firm and buy nothing from Barbara's registry. Instead, I sent a heartfelt email explaining my feelings. I told her that while I love her and want to support her, I couldn't condone her actions or current behavior. I also expressed concerns about her relationship with Earl and suggested she seek counseling. I spent hours drafting that email, trying to balance honesty with kindness. I even had Todd proofread it to ensure I wasn't too harsh. I thought that putting my feelings in writing might make Barbara more receptive to what I had to say. Barbara's response was not what I'd hoped for. She forwarded my email to our entire extended family, adding her commentary about my abandonment in her time of need. This resulted in a flood of messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all urging me to do the right thing and support Barbara. Aunt Susan, always close to Barbara, called me and lectured me on family loyalty. She reminded me how she'd helped me find my first internship in marketing and implied I owed it to the family to support Barbara. Uncle Mike, who typically avoids family drama, sent a lengthy text about the difficulties of pregnancy and how I should be more understanding. The situation climaxed last weekend at our grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. I had been hesitant to attend, knowing Barbara would be there, but I didn't want to miss this significant family event. Grandma Margaret has always been our family's anchor. She raised 5 children as a single mother after our grandfather passed away young, and she's always been a source of wisdom and comfort for all of us grandkids. As soon as I arrived at the party, held in Grandma's retirement village community center, I felt the tension in the room. Barbara was holding court near the punch bowl, showing off her barely there baby bump and gushing about her excitement to be a mom. When she saw me, she loudly announced, "Oh, look who decided to show up. I guess you could afford the gas to drive here, even if you can't afford a simple gift for your future niece or nephew." I tried to ignore her, focusing on celebrating Grandma, but Barbara wouldn't relent. She kept making snide comments throughout the day, and most of the family seemed to encourage her behavior. She talked about eating for 2 and needed extra servings of everything, pointedly asking if I was watching my figure since I wasn't pregnant. Even Grandma, usually the voice of reason in family disputes, told me I should be more supportive of my sister. "Family is all we have," she said, patting my hand. "You'll understand when you have children." The final straw came during gift giving. Barbara had bought Grandma an expensive piece of jewelry, a gold locket with space for family photos. She made a grand show of presenting it, talking about how the baby's picture would soon go inside. As everyone oot and ate, she turned to me and said, "See, this is how you show family love." I guess some people are just too selfish to understand that. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and addressed the entire family. I told them about Barbara's deception, how she had tricked Earl into pregnancy. I explained that while I loved Barbara, I couldn't support her actions or her current entitled behavior. I said that real family support meant honesty, not enabling harmful behavior. The room fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Barbara burst into tears and fled, nearly toppling the punch bowl in her haste. Mom started yelling, accusing Me of ruining Grandma's birthday and airing our dirty laundry publicly. Most of the family looked shocked and uncomfortable. Aunt Susan tried to smooth things over, suggesting we calm down and have cake. Uncle Mike muttered something about young people these days and poured himself another drink. My cousins whispered among themselves, occasionally glancing my way. I left shortly after, feeling a mix of relief at finally speaking my truth and guilt for causing a scene at what should have been a happy family event. Todd, who witnessed it all, told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself but worried about the fallout. Now I'm getting messages from family members who were at the party. Some apologized for pressuring me, saying they didn't know the whole story. Cousin Rachel, always a bit of a rebel, sent a supportive text, admiring my courage. Others are still angry, claiming I had no right to reveal Barbara's private information. Uncle Mike, especially, sent a strongly worded email about respect and family values. Barbara hasn't contacted me directly, but she's been posting vague, dramatic statuses on social media about toxic family members and staying strong. She's also been sharing many quotes about motherhood's importance and how blood is thicker than water. I stand by what I said, but I'm worried about the long-term consequences for our family relationships. Grandma's birthday has always been a major family event, a time for us to gather despite our differences. I feel guilty for disrupting that tradition. Todd has been incredibly supportive throughout all of this. He's offered to run interference with my family if needed, and has been a patient listener when I need to vent. But I can tell he's worried about how this might impact our relationships with my family in the long term. I'm also starting to wonder how this will impact future family events. Will I be uninvited from Thanksgiving dinner? Will there be tension at every gathering from now on? And when the baby is born, will I be allowed to be part of my niece or nephew's life? I stand by my decision not to enable Barbara's behavior, but I'm struggling with the fallout. Has anyone else dealt with a family rift like this? How did you move forward? Any advice on navigating future family gatherings would be greatly appreciated. Update 2. A month since my last update, and the situation has taken some unexpected turns. I appreciate everyone following this saga and offering advice. About 2 weeks ago, I received a surprising call from Earl, Barbara's husband. He'd heard about Grandma's birthday party and wanted to talk. We agreed to meet for coffee at a small cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived at the cafe, I found Earl already there, looking tired and a bit disheveled. As we sat down with our coffees, he filled me in on his side of the story. Apparently, after Barbara's revelation about stopping birth control, Earl had indeed gone to stay with his parents. But it wasn't just to think things over. He was actually meeting with a lawyer to discuss his options. He felt utterly betrayed by Barbara and was considering divorce. Earl confided he'd always been clear with Barbara about his timeline for having children. They had discussed it extensively before marriage, and he thought they were on the same page. Finding out that she had deliberately deceived him had shattered his trust. However, after much soul-searching and family conversations, Earl decided to give the marriage another chance. He told me he still loves Barbara despite everything, and wants to be there for his child. They've started couples therapy, trying to work through their issues. Earl thanked me for standing up for him at the family gathering even though he wasn't there. He said it meant a lot that someone in Barbara's family understood the gravity of what she had done. He admitted he'd been avoiding contact with our family because he didn't know how to face them, knowing what Barbara had done. I was relieved Earl and Barbara were working things out, but I was still wary. I asked Earl if Barbara had shown any remorse for her actions or recent behavior towards me. His hesitation spoke volumes. He admitted that while Barbara was trying to make things right with him, she was still angry with me for betraying her. At the birthday party, as we finished our coffees, Earl asked if I'd meet with him and Barbara together as part of their reconciliation. I told him I'd consider it, but was hesitant. The idea of facing Barbara after all that happened was daunting. A few days after meeting Earl, I got another call. This time from Mom. Her tone was completely different from our previous conversations. She apologized for pressuring me to support Barbara unconditionally and admitted she'd been so focused on becoming a grandmother that she had overlooked the seriousness of Barbara's actions. Mom explained that after the birthday party fiasco, she and Dad had a long talk with Barbara. They made it clear that while they love her and support her pregnancy, they don't approve of her deception or how she's treated me. They've cut off the extra financial support they were giving her, apparently funding many registry items, and told her she needed to take responsibility for her actions. This conversation with Mom was a breakthrough. For the first time, I felt like my parents were seeing the situation clearly rather than just indulging Barbara, as they always had. Mom even shared some of her fears and insecurities about becoming a grandmother, which helped me understand her. Initial reaction a bit better. Barbara, for her part, seems to be slowly accepting the consequences of her actions. She sent a text message, not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement that she'd been unfair. The message read, "Hey sis, I know things have been really messed up between us. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Can we talk soon?" It wasn't much, but it was a start. I've agreed to meet with Barbara next week, but I've made it clear I expect a full apology and a change in behavior going forward. The family is still somewhat divided. Some relatives think I should just forgive and forget, for the sake of family. Harmony, Aunt Susan especially, keeps sending me links to articles about the importance of sisterly bonds. Others have reached out, expressing admiration for standing my ground. Cousin Rachel even invited me for dinner, saying she wanted to hear the whole story, free from family drama. As for Todd and me, this whole situation has led to serious conversations about our own future. We've always agreed on wanting kids eventually. But now discussing timeline, expectations, and the critical role of open communication in more detail. Todd admitted the family turmoil had made him anxious about starting our own, leading to a long emotional talk about our fears and hopes for the future. I'm nervous about meeting Barbara, but I'm trying to approach it with an open mind.
I know.
We have a lot to work through, and it won't be resolved in one conversation. But I'm hopeful this could be the first step toward healing our relationship. I'll update again after I meet Barbara. Wish me luck. Update 3. 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in this ongoing family drama. I met with Barbara as planned at a quiet park near our parents' house. We used to come here as kids to feed the ducks, and being back brought a flood of memories. The conversation was tense initially, with both of us unsure how to begin, but as we walked around the pond, Barbara finally broke down, admitting she'd been wrong. She apologized for deceiving Earl, for her entitled behavior regarding baby gifts, and for how she'd treated me. Barbara explained that she had been so consumed by her desire for a baby that she lost sight of everything, including the potential consequences of her actions. She said that couples therapy with Earl has been eye-opening, making her realize the damage she'd done to their relationship and her family connections. Barbara shared that she's been diagnosed with anxiety and started individual therapy in addition to couples counseling. She admitted that her fixation on having a baby stemmed partly from feeling she was falling behind in life compared to her friends and me. It was a vulnerable moment, and I found myself empathizing, despite everything. While I appreciated her apology, I made it clear that rebuilding our relationship would require time. I told her I was willing to work on it, but needed to see consistent change in her behavior. We agreed to start regular sister dates like we used to reconnect and rebuild trust. Since that conversation, things have slowly improved. Barbara has stopped posting entitled messages on social media and has taken down the extravagant baby registry. She and Earl are preparing for the baby more realistically, and they've both been making an effort to mend fences with the family. Our parents have maintained their stance of loving support combined with clear boundaries. They're excited about becoming grandparents, but no longer indulge Barbara's every whim. This seems to be having a positive effect on Barbara's behavior. Mom has even started attending Al-Anon meetings, saying she wants to learn how to support Barbara without enabling harmful behavior. As for the rest of the family, opinions are still divided, but the extreme reactions have calmed. Most relatives seem to be taking a wait-and-see approach, which I think is healthy. Aunt Susan has stopped sending guilt-tripping messages, and Uncle Mike actually called to apologize for his harsh words after Grandma's birthday party. Todd has been my rock throughout this entire ordeal. Our conversations about our future have brought us closer, and we're now tentatively planning to start trying for our own baby next year. We've both agreed that open communication will be the cornerstone of our approach to parenthood. Barbara is now 6 months pregnant, and despite the rocky start, excitement for the baby is building in the family. We're planning a small, intimate baby shower next month, nothing extravagant, just a simple celebration with close family and friends. Barbara asked me to help organize it, which I see as a positive sign. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. While the past few months have been challenging, I believe standing my ground was the right thing to do. It led to difficult but necessary family conversations and has ultimately brought about positive change. There's still work to be done, and I know there will likely be bumps in the road ahead. But for now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my relationship with Barbara, supporting her and Earl as they prepare for parenthood, and looking forward to becoming an aunt. Thank you to everyone who has followed this story and offered support and advice along the way. It's been a wild ride, but I'm hopeful. We're finally on a path to healing and stronger family relationships.